Hello, welcome back to Museum Diaries. I am here with the Duchess, Veronica. This is Jax, and it's Thursday, April 11th.
And before I forget, Ma says, put a cap on capitalism. Seriously. To feed the greed, it's not about need. It's about ego, megalomania.
And it's everywhere. Greed is everywhere. So speaking of greed,
it's something we always have to fight. But speaking about greed, what?
America, we have a problem. It is the opioid epidemic that we're facing as a nation. It's killing more people than all the soldiers combined that went to war post 9/11. So it's a serious issue.
They say that Americans under the age of 50, the #1 cause of death right now is drug overdose, specifically fentanyl. And Trump may espouse all about how it's pharmaceutical drugs. It's pharmaceutical in that, yes, scientists created fentanyl. However, fentanyl is manufactured, first of all, the opium flowers are grown in Mexico. From there, they're shipped out to China. From China, they have their chemists, but I think it doesn't have to go to China. They have their own chemists there. And then they just smuggle it into the United States. The wall is not going to deter it, but that's my opinion, and take it from an ex-drug smuggler.
The thing is, what's happening is, with the poverty levels increasing, drug addicts are looking for something that's cheaper and more potent, and that's what they're finding in the fentanyl. It's 50% more potent than heroin, and it's a lot cheaper than heroin. And what's happening is, this is a synthetic drug that is made, and it's not anything that's right. It's not like the fentanyl you get over the counter where that's regulated. This is a fentanyl that is illegally made, and it's this fentanyl that's killing people.
And it's cheap to manufacture. It's cheaper now to be an addict than it was, let's say, 30 years ago, which is insane, because with inflation you would think for sure that the prices would have gone up. But for fentanyl, and what's going on right now is that it's being introduced to everybody. It's a cheap high. And why do people want to do it? Why does anyone want to get high? Well, I can only speak to the opium high, and having known heroin addicts, seen their fight, and being hospitalized myself, and having experimented in my youth, what I found was that depending upon the level of high that you are, it's almost as if it takes away all of your physical pain. That's fantastic. But beyond that, it puts a buffer between you and reality. So emotional issues that you may be having can be subdued, and for a while they seem to be gone. And that's one of the beauties, I guess, of fentanyl for the addict. I painted a painting in a way of commemorating the lives that I loved that were lost to heroin and opioids. And I've lost quite a few of people that were very close in my life. I painted poppy love, poppy because of the poppy plant. And you'll be getting, Jax will be doing more close-ups, so you'll be able to see more of the painting in total. But this is her. And I have her in a ballerina costume because that's so much of what little girls, at least in my generation, were taught. You know, we're supposed to be these little ballerinas. We go to our ballet classes and take our piano lessons, and you can see that she now has become a wreck. I mean, she's totally anorexic. And
now, we've gotten our statistics and our information from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the National Institute of Health, and also a pretty large article that was put out by the Council on Foreign Relations.
And Homeland Security records as well.
And what I found interesting was that the majority of the overdoses on
let's get her here.
On heroin, on opioids of this sort, are non-Hispanic whites.
They're the ones that are dying from the overdoses, which is interesting because if you think of something that's being manufactured in a country and the own country isn't using it. I know that when I was involved in the marijuana smuggling years and years ago, it was a rule among the Mexican mob that you did not ever touch hard drugs. You didn't do that. You could drink alcohol, you could snort some cocaine, but you never ever used hypodermic syringes, and you certainly would never do heroin. And if you were known to do that within the Mexican mafia circles, you were ostracized because you were considered untrustworthy. So it might have some kind of cultural thing to it, where it's considered, you know, so shunned upon that the Hispanics just basically are into it. Not to say that there aren't junkies that are Hispanics. I'm sure there are.
That's why I thought this was interesting, Poppy Love, because she looks almost like your all-American girl. But, you know, obviously...
Well, you can see here's a sister with her arm out and a bandage with my blood actually on this bandage. It's my DNA. But it's to show that this sister was hitting up drugs and she wants another fix, because this is a pretty... In those circles, you see people, you know, pumping up their arms and tying off and saying, come on,
there's
come
a
on,
tie-off that she has.
And then there's Poppy Love's tie-off, and you can see the blood dropping from her with the syringe. Then at the very bottom, you see another woman of color, and there's her tennis shoe. She's obviously overdosed. So it's Poppy Love. You see the poppy flower in the background. You see the bulbs. And these bulbs are what they cut and they extract the opium from.
She's drifting off into her intoxication.
And if you look at the eyes, it's like her eyes are like the clouds. It's like she's in heaven.
If you ever looked at the eyes of a heroin addict after they've shot up, their pupils...
Not dilated, they're retracted. They
look like
they call them pins, yeah. And so that's why her eyes are pinned. And why she has clouds, not really, you know, natural eyeballs, because they say windows to the soul, so I made her eyes like windows. Her windows to her soul show an emptiness, a vacuity that I think is one of the effects that people are trying to get. So you have to ask yourself, why are all these American whites craving for this? I think that in part it has to do with that there are just a few privileged. So the whites were growing up to believe that the American dream was possible. Much easier for them to believe it than, say, a woman of color who, you know, you don't anticipate that you have the American dream. You know, you're going to work hard all your life. But for the average whites, I think that are in this generation from 50 to, you know, teenagers, that the American dream is destroyed for them. They see their parents that are both working, they can't pay their mortgage bills, they don't even have a home. You know, they're renting an apartment house, etc., etc. So when you crash these ideals and dreams that have been sacredly held for generations after generations, and the children are open-eyed saying, that dream doesn't work. Land of opportunity, I applied to McDonald's, and because of my DUI or because of whatever their background is, maybe they didn't get the job. And you're really setting up a lot of kids for failure, because once they get that felony on their record, you know, a lot of people won't hire them. And I think we have to redo the way we're thinking about crime and criminals. Now that it's, I don't know what the stats are, it's 1 out of every 15 Americans are going to go to jail or prison. Might even be higher than that. I think that says we really need to say, who are these criminals? Are they the boogeyman? Not usually. Although, yes, of course, there are the bad people that are evil, that hurt people and indiscriminately. But I'm talking about the average criminal. I think the average criminal, they're involved in drugs, substance abuse, and they make poor decisions, and a lot of this is, you know, crashed dreams, broken marriages, and it's just a hard time right now, I think, for Americans.
And also, I want to mention that your military veterans are twice as likely to fall under an opioid addiction.
So, you know, you think about trauma and its relationship to the use of drugs. You're going to get close-ups of this later. Poppy Love is for sale.
If you have a bid for Poppy Love, get in touch with us. Email us at museumamericana@gmail.com.
It'll be on the bottom of the screen.
And also, I recommend you also take a look at Molly Meth. And if you have a bid for her, contact us at museumamericana@gmail.com.